Hello, if you are just joining us today, we are beginning constructing our Styrofoam cup sculptures. I just went over with students the criteria for this project along with how to create sketches for our ideas, meeting all the criteria. So we started out with kind of going over subject, content, form. Subject for my first example is representational, and I went with an animal, insect, bee. The second step was to understand my subject matter by doing a sketch from a Google image. Step 3 was then transferring that understanding of my subject to a design structure with a styrofoam cup. So then I drew 2 cups and I kind of dissected with red where I would slice it and kind of visualize how that would be constructed here. And step 4 in pink, I labeled the elements of art, principles of design that had to go with this structure. Okay. I also demonstrated if you were to go an abstract route, how you would still meet that criteria. Thinking about labeling, yes, it's going to be abstract, maybe more geometric. Step 2, instead of a doodle or a sketch to better understand the subject matter, you would maybe set some goals to maybe having more rings or circles, negative space, whatever it is, texture, patterning, zigzags, whatever it is. And then design structure step by step. That styrofoam cup, again, drawing that first, and then how you would slice it, transfer it to your design over here. The last step, number 4, label elements of art, principles of design. For this one, negative space was a big one. Shape, circles, rings being geometric, and textures, I thought we would go in with like a pencil and maybe dent some spots or dent some stripes. That might also contrast textures. So that's a principal contrast there that I added. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's say something to consider for your structure. Here's an example of a sculpture, and this is a very tall sculpture. I don't even think I can get the whole thing on camera. And this student used the base, and they made sure that, and I want you guys to consider this in the design and constructing process, that they made the base heavier. So they made the cup part, or the bottom part, their base or pedestal, the bottom ring is really wide so that both of those could be anchors. As they went up to the taller part of their design, they did these squares and they made them bigger, and they get smaller, smaller, smaller as they go, so they're lighter and lighter weight. And then they also balance them a little evenly so this can stand up by itself. Okay, so it's kind of in this curve. Another student went in more of a ring route, and they started intertwining them together, having different sizes, and they painted theirs with house paint when they were all done, so that sticks pretty good with the styrofoam. Something to consider: before this group did this project, I did not have sanding sponges in my classroom. So now that I have these, you can smooth out a lot of the chatter these previous projects had. Now, they're not terrible, but I think you guys will be really happy with the results using this along the way. Okay, so those are just a few quick examples. Both of those are abstract, and you don't have to do abstract for this. You can explore semi-abstract or representational too. So a little trick that I discovered while experimenting was a lot of issues that students have had in the past is like cutting, but not, or like they would maybe squeeze the cup too hard or push it down while they're cutting and it breaks. So I started using solo cups to stabilize your cup, and then you can slice it with an X-Acto knife that way. So I'm going to demonstrate how to use that with a simple design for this demo, and then I'm going to pull some pieces together for the other design that I was trying to develop here. So starting with an abstract form, I'm going to show you the very basics. You can use scissors and or an X-Acto knife for this, and I am going to start out, and you could have the option to also use a pencil to draw out where you want slice things. You don't have to, but sometimes people like that guidance. So that when they're slicing around, it doesn't like get all off. So then with an X-Acto knife, make sure it's tightened. You have the sharp side pointing down. And you can kind of pierce it first, and then you can cut. Again, that solo cup is going to be super helpful for keeping it from breaking, keeping its shape and form. And like I mentioned with cardboard, you have more control and it's a little safer if you're cutting forwards to back and you're spinning your project or turning it. Instead of turning your wrist and losing control, again, change the position of your project instead. And that really was easy to do, again, with that solo cup. As you go, you can take a sanding sponge. I have a grit 100. You can use all sorts of different grits. And you can smooth it out. Now you'll notice that right away it does shed. Make sure you allow enough time at the end of the hour to clean up your table, brush off your chair, so that students in my next hour don't get styrofoam all over them. It does get a little staticky too, so you might want a damp paper towel to help with cleanup. So if you want, you can smooth it out along the way. Another thing I saw someone do once is use a popsicle stick. And you can use this to kind of compress that styrofoam or rub it to get that nice and shaped or smoothed out. I also have different shaped carving tools from your soap carving project you can experiment with, or clay tools. I could pull some of those out as well for smoothing or compressing. You can use some of those tools as well for like imprinting into the styrofoam. I love how you can manipulate it that way too. If you want some type of rhythm of pattern as a design element as well. So that's kind of fun. But I am going to use this as the heavier base, and then I'm going to do a couple rings. Okay, so again, using this technique, I'm going to cut another ring. You guys would spend more slow time on it, so it's better craftsmanship, but cleaning it up as I go. I want to show you how you can use the styrofoam cup for pieces, smaller pieces too. And I don't want you guys to throw away these styrofoam cups. Make sure that you are putting them back behind my desk so other people can use them too. But you can place pieces depending on like what shape or size it is. This just happened to be a ring, and I can place this back on the cup for doing intricate cutouts. So if I wanted to do some type of pattern, I can use this to stabilize it as I get it cut out. Again, be aware of your fingers where those are placed, and then I can peel it away as I go. So if you want to do little slits, anything at all, and what's nice is that you can go in and you can use the point end of this to go into smaller areas and smooth it out. I also have paper sandpaper if you want to fold it and get into small grooves or anything, but this material is extremely fragile, so you want to think about how you're squeezing it. Notice how this is like super delicate here, so be aware that where you're pinching it, where you're holding it, it matters. So anyways, so as I'm constructing, you can think about, okay, how am I going to link them together? How am I going to assemble? You know, maybe I do a little snip and I then hook them together and stabilize it a certain way as I go, making a link, whatever it is. Or I could do slots and tabs. You know, again, watching where my finger is. And maybe I slide in a piece in here. And I might actually make it a little wider so I can slide it in a little easier. So that can be part of my structure too. And maybe it kind of comes out. and I stick it back in the other way, or I can even stretch it. Do keep in mind that the cup is rounded, so if you're trying to flatten it, it might break. So you might have to play with the curves, or stack, or do something that's kind of like, oops, I didn't make it wide. Yeah, manipulate it in some way to get that to not break. But you get the idea of some options there. So play around as you go, again, thinking about craftsmanship along the way. So I wanted to show you, though, how you can stack and layer and score. So I was playing around with a few shapes to think about constructing this bee design that I showed you first. So I was trying to think of, okay, how can I make these mirroring shapes for like the belly and the back? And maybe I can secure it with hot glue, like where his stinger is. I scored it right here. It did pop open a little bit more than I thought. So maybe I, secure with hot glue like some dots just to make sure it doesn't completely fall apart. You decide on where that hot glue goes. The hot glue, it's okay if you use it for securing pieces side by side at seams. That's okay for this project, okay? Another thing I want you to think about, is like the viewpoint from around. But yeah, repairing if you need to along the way, that's totally fine. So I was trying to think, okay, how can I like make that 3D form of a body? I was playing around with these if I wanted to like pop them in the sides, or if I wanted to adhere the wings in some way. Maybe I wanted to do something more intricate, like a web kind of look, or netting. I could cut out some negative shapes to make it look more fragile. Maybe have them flare out in some way. I haven't really decided how I would do that, but again, don't be afraid to stack things, to have multiple layers too, for stability purposes. So you can thicken that and not just use one layer. You can have 3 layers, 2 layers, 4 layers to have more depth and thickness there. So think about that as you go, if that is more relevant to your design, or if you want to do something more delicate and hollowed out. It all varies, okay? Again, you have the option for finishes to keep it white, or to have it painted, or do Sharpie on it. That could be an idea too if you want to do something more intricate. The possibilities are endless. All right, so that is it for that demo, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do.